All right, we're back. If you missed the last video, I gave everyone an update with some issues I'm having with the MTD2, the transmission in this. I also gave everyone at the end of the video an update of some of the changes I'm making and upgrades I'm making to the car. So I'm about to get started on that, and I'm gonna bring you guys along with me. All right, first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna start getting to work on the VMP ice tank that I've got in the trunk. First things first, gonna remove this reservoir because obviously that would be gone because we'll be using the VMP ice tank. I'm going to remove all the hoses because we'll be upgrading to 1-inch hoses. The heat exchanger, we're keeping this heat exchanger for now. Hopefully one day we'll be able to buy one of those Department of Boost Titanic heat exchangers, but sticking with this single core deal for now. And we need to remove this pump. This pump is the pump that came with this phase 2 Roush setup. We'll be upgrading to a C-Max pump, which is a water pump used on the Ford C-Max, coolant pump, I guess you would call it. Once I get that, I'll show you guys that and give you some more details on that. But yeah, gonna get these components pulled off and all this fluid removed from the system and go from there. So we got all the hoses, the reservoir all removed. We got our pump removed. And that's gonna be the spot where we put our catch can. So I'm gonna move on to getting that kind of sorted. What I'm gonna do with that, I need to remove the intake here so I can get some nice access to here. We've got some new fittings that came from Motion for the Coyote valve covers. And then we'll run the lines from here, there, all the way down into this area here where we'll mount the catch can. All right, so I've got everything all pulled apart. I got to pull these guys out. This is the factory one here. They simply just twist out. I already got the other side out and got the new fitting in, and I just kind of set the 90 on there just to try to see which way I'm going to situate. I think I'm going to send it down and out underneath the other side. But yeah, super cool little fittings here that thread right into the factory Coyote valve cover. So yeah, that's pretty sweet. Waiting for some more 90s to show up because they shorted me one. So in the meantime, I think I'm gonna get started at mounting the catch can down here. All right, so I've been messing around with placement here, and I think the best spot is gonna be right here, just like that. I think it'll keep it out of the elements as well too. I know there's an open fog light hole on this side of the bumper, which is further over this way, so we should be good there. It'll fit nice and clean in there. Run the hoses out into the side there and have nice access to the drain on the bottom. All right, there we are. Got her all mounted up on the frame rail there. I just got to figure out the lines, how I'm going to route them. All right, so I just wrapped up the Motion Raceworks catch can there. Had to order a bit more line. The 6 feet that came with it was not enough for where I wanted to place it. A couple things with the kit. I don't think it's Motion Raceworks fault or anything, but just the way that these thread into the valve covers here, like they're not very strong in there. I know when I move this around, you can see it kind of moves around a bit. And if you actually yank on it, you'll pop it out because it's really just like a little groove with plastic. So it's not anything super sturdy. It'd be nice with some kind of like AN, but I guess you'd have to have some like aluminum valve covers or something, or steel that have AN fittings on them. But for now, it's gonna work. I'm gonna get them nice and like snugged up so it's not like they're gonna move around much. Hopefully don't pop out. But yeah, routed this side obviously up over this way. I wanted to kind of run it down the side there, but the problem is with the intake kind of gets in the way of doing that, so I did have to route it down here, down beside the fan shroud, and then across the, you probably can't see there, but across the bottom. I'll take underneath and show. So I routed it down on the other side of the fan shroud there, across the rad support here, and then up into there, and same kind of deal up through there for the driver's side. All right, so yeah, that wraps up the catch can deal. So I'm gonna move on to routing all the 1-inch line for the intercooler ice tank deal. I'm still waiting on a couple components, but I will show you what I'm about to do here once those arrive. All right, so it's been a while since I pulled the camera out. Was living out in the shop here for just over a month as we did renovations inside the house. So I went ahead and did the install on the ice tank while we were out here, and just didn't want to be filming out here while we were living in here. But I've got everything all wrapped up on the tank. Like I said, unfortunately, I didn't film any of the install, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of go over the whole setup and the install to show you guys where I ran all the lines and any issues that I had, just for anyone that's running into this or installing one of these ice tanks in the future. All right, so I guess I'll start in the back. There she is, ice tank all installed in there. There's our pump. So what I'll do, I guess I'll show you what I did in the trunk and then kind of work from there. So you got your drain here, which got ran out the back. So I'll show you where that is out the back side there. Had to drill the hole in there for the drain. This existing hole was already here, this drain hole, which I was using as the feed. Couple things with this. I ended up buying this pigtail off Amazon, which caused me a ton of issues. I spent about 2 weekends blowing fuses over and over again, trying all different things. Couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. I tested the pump that I originally bought. It tested fine. I thought maybe that was the issue and went ahead and even bought a second one of these pumps. So spent another couple $100 on a pump. Come to find out, this friggin' pigtail was totally pinned wrong. Not just the positive and negative, there's also like a speed wire, and then there's, I think, I'm not sure what the other one is. The other one's just the ground or whatever it is, but literally all 4 prongs were pinned wrong, the opposite of what they should have been. So that was a bit of a disaster, but once I got that figured out, aside from that, everything else wasn't too bad. But as you can see here, this is the feed I've got running down here. I'm gonna get underneath the car, but there are things that I would probably have done differently if I didn't have an exhaust on this car or full exhaust out the back. That really limited where I could run things. And I was trying to eliminate 90s or reductions across the system, but I couldn't avoid some of them, which you'll see once we get up front. All right, hopefully you guys can see this all right, but here's the feed that I dropped out the bottom. Like I said, this was the factory drain hole. I just put a grommet in there. So I had to put a 90 there to run it back this way. Here is the drain. You can't really see behind, but as you see it up top, I kind of, well, maybe you can see a bit. Just kind of ran it out the back there. I'm gonna have it just dump here. I might shorten that up a bit. Probably doesn't need to be that long, but like I said, here's the feed, 90 degrees, came out here, ran it up over top this bracket here for the exhaust. Once I got past this exhaust hanger here, I did add some heat wrap to the line just to keep it safe and from getting too hot. There's quite a bit of room on this side, so probably didn't need it, but I bought enough that I had enough to do both sides, so I did put some on there just to be cautious. But as you can see, kind of ran it up over top of everything there, down through here. It was nice. I didn't have to put any 90s or anything in here. It kind of just swoops over, swoops down here, just over top of the fuel tank. And then as you can see, it's just a straight run down there. Now, I'm not a huge fan of how it turned out here down this side with it being on that frame rail there. I would have liked to have gotten it up in here with the fuel lines and the evap stuff, but I would think I would have to probably delete that evap stuff to have enough room there to run this line, which I might do in the future. I just haven't pulled the trigger yet. Just not sure if I want to delete it or not, but probably will. And then once I do, I'll just kind of move this line over to where the fuel lines are and run it all nice down there. All right, so coming up to the driver's side here, I probably should have filmed this before I put the wheel back on, but I don't feel like pulling the wheel back off. But runs nicely up in here, kind of just behind the A-arm here. Put a nice little bracket just up here just to keep it up and away from everything. Up, swoop down, and then I've got this lightweight radiator deal here from BMR. I don't know how much smaller this is than the factory stuff, so it might be a little bit more difficult if you've got a factory rad support, but definitely tons of room to run it up here. So coming from down the driver's side, it runs up here. Now we went from 1 inch, and I think this is 5/8 or 3/4. I actually can't remember what I had to go to here, but it really bottlenecks down to go into the intercooler. Eventually, I'd like to get some bigger ports for this intercooler so I could continue to feed the 1 inch line all the way up, but unfortunately had to narrow it down. But I guess once you get inside these intercoolers too, it's even smaller. So either way, I think it's a bottleneck. But so in the bottom, warm water coming out the top here. Another thing I'm not a huge fan of is you've got the coolant hose right here, which kind of warms these lines up a little bit. So that's also not ideal. So I would like to eventually, hopefully, get like straight ports out of here to be able to kind of maneuver around that coolant line to keep the lines from getting warm. So as the warm water comes out, I got it running down here. And like I said, still got the factory Roush heat exchanger here. I would like to get something a bit better, a Department of Boost one at some point. But so yeah, it comes swooping down here, as you can see, up Again, once I got to the heat exchanger here, I had to bottleneck it down to this smaller hose, actually 3/4. So 3/4 is what I ran up top and had to run into the heat exchanger here. So warm water into the top of the heat exchanger. This gives it a bit of an opportunity for the water to cool down a bit before it makes its way back to the tank. Again, outside the bottom here, we've got 3/4 inch and then back up to 1 inch. And there's a 90 there, as you can see. Actually, no, I still ran the 1/4 inch. There wasn't a ton of room. Like I said, once I get this Department of Boost heat exchanger at some point, I'm gonna redo this and try to get rid of all this 3/4 stuff. Now, I know some people were saying you could run 2 1-inch lines down each side. Definitely was a lot easier running one down each side. Even at that, I was messing around a few times trying different ways to route it, and it still was a bit of a pain in the ass, but it's totally not terrible. Like I said, though, if you're trying to run 2 1-inch lines underneath the car, it'd be super difficult. It'd be a lot easier actually just running them straight through the car, but don't want to be cutting stuff up and running hoses through the interior of the car. So as you see here, the return line coming out the passenger side, got it running up here, and then I brought it from 3/4 back up to 1 inch. So we got 1 inch line routed the same way right through here. Fits perfectly nice in behind the plastic inner fender there, and then straight down. Now that's the nice thing on this side, there was nothing ran down here. There's no fuel lines or anything, they're all on the other side, so there was tons of room to tuck this up nicely. So like I said, I'd like to do the same thing on that side because I'm not huge on how low it hangs down there. I'm sure it'll be fine, but ideally I'd like it more tucked up like this side ended up, which was real nice. Now making our way to the back, there was this nice plastic piece that was here, which is nice, helped keep it up and slide the hose through there nicely. Then we got back to the fuel tank, which I just ran some zip ties to kind of keep it nice up there. Now got a lot tighter as I got onto the passenger side here. As you can see, I had to go into a 90 up there just to try to avoid everything. The exhaust is a lot tighter on this side, and then there's a bracket for the panhard bar that really pushes things close to the exhaust. So ideally, you want to have some heat wrap on there, and that's why I got that wrap originally, was to cover especially this, with it being super close to the exhaust. At least it'll help it be a little bit cooler as it passes by the exhaust and all through up in there. Like I said, it got kind of tight on this side versus the other side, but nice run up over here, and then I just did a 90 back into the trunk. Like I said, if it wasn't for the exhaust, it probably would have been a lot simpler to route this stuff. And then also with this evap, if I got rid of this evap, it probably would have made things easier. That could have made some nicer swoops. Like even like this 90, could have got rid of this 90 completely if you didn't have tailpipes. So if you got fender exit or you're dumping them back by the axle, you could definitely route this a lot nicer with less 90s and less reductions, which would be a lot more ideal. All right, so getting back up into the trunk, you can see here's the return. I had to drill that hole for the return to bring it back into the trunk, but there it is. So what I'll do is I'll get this thing fired up and get the water moving so you guys can kind of see it in action and hear how it sounds. All right, I guess I should actually show you guys too. What I did is I ran a switch for the ice tank, so as you can see in the center console, fit nicely in there. So actually, as you can see right now, the key's on. So technically with the wire, it'd be live now, so it would have power. I've got it on switch power, so I can't turn it on unless the key's in the ignition position. But with the ignition on and this switch off, the pump's not running. So as you see, I turn her on, switch lights up, and there goes the pump. It takes a few seconds for it to get going. I don't know if you can hear it on the video, but you can slightly hear it in the car, but when the car is running, you can't hear it at all. There you go, there's some of the trunk with it running. As you can see, we're moving water, a lot more water than we were with the old setup. I'm sure it'd probably be a bit better if you didn't have any 90s or any of the bottlenecks in the system, but definitely with my hand in there, I can feel it's moving some pretty good water, as you can probably hear there once I get my hand kind of covering the hole a bit. So that gives you a better visual of the flow there as I get a bit closer. But yeah, definitely moving a lot more water than the old system was. So I think just that alone will definitely help. And then also having the opportunity now to throw ice in to really cool down the water running through the intercooler up front. So this should make a big difference with the IATs. I wasn't really having a huge issue previously, to be honest. But like I mentioned, I think earlier in this video or in the last video, just wanting to do some more things here to get it ready for when I do have the opportunity to make more boost and more power, so I won't be running into issues with higher IATs. All right, so that wraps up the install on the VMP ice tank and the Motion Raceworks catch can. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. If you guys have any questions, just drop them down in the comments in the bottom and I'll do my best to answer any of the questions that you might have. So I did do a bunch of maintenance and switched a couple things up on the car that were just, you know, regular maintenance kind of deals, nothing too exciting. But one thing I did do, which I do frequently once or twice a year, is I did a nut and bolt check. Went over the car, checked all the nuts, all the bolts, suspension, everything, kind of go over all the lines. Just check everything up, just make sure everything's good, because, you know, when you're messing around and racing and going as quick as we go, it's always good to try to keep an eye on everything and just kind of limit having any issues, because, yeah, obviously you don't want to hurt the car or even worse, hurt myself. So went over everything. One thing I do want to point out that I caught as I was checking everything over is on the brake booster here. So on the reservoir here, I did a separate clutch line, so it's got its own little reservoir here. So the factory clutch line ran off of here. So the kit that I bought came with this little rubber grommet to plug off the original clutch line port there. Now, if you take a look at that, tell me that's not going to become an issue in the future. So this is why it's important, people, to go over your cars, check all your brake lines, check every nut, check every bolt. You know, if this was to come apart or fall off at the end of a pass on a short shutdown, this could be a major issue. So I'm glad I caught that. I'm gonna address that now. But yeah, that's it, everyone. So hope you enjoyed the video. Not sure what I'm gonna get up to next. It's what, mid-March here now. I'm gonna try to get this off the hoist here, or off the quick jacks. Just got to throw the front bumper back on. Try to get that done this weekend, and then I've got some stuff to do with the truck, and I bought another daily driver too. So I got a different car that I'm driving on the daily now. So I got some stuff I want to do with that. But yeah, the season will be get going here soon. Not sure what we're going to be doing, but definitely bring you guys along for the ride once we get to that and get going. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys on the next video. Okay, so quick update. I forgot there's a little plug in the end that came with that kit too. So even with that grommet getting all cracked up, I think we still would have been okay, but still good to swap it out.